every single person on earth has an innate ability to create. Hey y'all, I wanted to tell you about my e-course, 100 Days Creating with God. I believe it is the single most important course you can take. It's a great starting place. See, because I believe that you have to develop a daily discipline before you can move into the artist that God wants you to be. Now, some of you may be doing artistic work with paints, but others of you may be starting a flower garden. You also may be cleaning out drawers and getting organized, and that may be your place of creativity. God says He made us in His image, and He is the great creator, then we were made to create too. And so my e-course, 100 Days Creating with God, is a great start for you. It will help you to develop your daily discipline. First, you'll have some inner changes inside of you. You'll connect with God and His holy word in new ways. And then secondly, you will develop your skill set as a creative. I will set up the rhythms for you where you will be spending time with God every day for 100 days. It will change your life. So consider taking my e-course, 100 Days Creating with God. The day Chico died. Because Chico was such a part of my life, I wanted to tell you about him. You know, he was a part of my mama's life. He was a part of my husband's life. He was a part of our family's life. So let me tell you who Chico was. He was a little chihuahua. We had another name for him. It was Tumbabote, which I don't know if I'm saying that exactly right in Spanish, but it was trash can dog. He was always looking for food. And he never even knew when to stop eating. Like, he would eat so much that he would get sick. So we had to control his amount of food and not leave any other dog food out, or he would eat it all. So Chico was a special little dog. Actually, my mom got him for her birthday. Her nephew and niece gave him to her. My dad had been gone for a few years, and she was lonely, and she wanted a little dog. So his name actually was Charlie when he came to her. He was a few months old, but she renamed him Chico. And so when she came to live with us, guess what? Chico came as well. And my husband really took the very strong role of training this dog. Now, thanks to my sister-in-law, Carolyn had house-trained Chico and actually had taken Chico home with her for a few weeks to train Chico, to house-train him so that he wouldn't pee and poo on the floor, and then brought him back to my mom, and he was trained. So my husband did extra training with him. He would bark for his food. He would play dead. There were just lots of little tricks that my husband did, and he was the number one caretaker for Chico. Chico was extremely feisty little dog. We had to always warn small children when we were around them that don't touch Chico or he will bite you. He, I think, got disturbed by some children when he was younger, and so he did not like small children. He was afraid of them, and so he would just bite, immediately go into, the mode of fighting and biting. So Chico was a very loyal dog. I think, probably most dogs are, but this dog was well loved by our family. A few years after we got Chico, we got Coda, another sort of rescue dog that was our neighbor's. And Coda's a yellow lab, and these two were really inseparable. Coda and Chico went with Wayman and I all the way to the Arctic Ocean. In the summer of 2015, Wayman and I did a 16,000-mile road trip with our Tundra pickup, Toyota Tundra pickup, and a Lance 19-foot trailer. And we took our 2 dogs with us. And so Chico got to see more national parks all the way through Utah and Montana and all the way through Canada, got it on a ferry, all the way to Alaska and all the way to the Arctic Ocean. We went all the way to Prudhoe Bay, and Chico and Coda went with us. So this little dog has saw a lot, saw a lot. So sort of the circumstances and why I'm choosing to share this part of my journal, y'all, and my journey, my personal journal with y'all about Chico is, God did some amazing things the last few days of Chico's life and sort of a reconnection for me. So Chico actually died on the 104th day after Wayman died. And Wayman passed away in January 19th. And probably about a week after that, I could not handle Chico being in my house. And my kids were all there with me. And Chico was peeing and pooing on the floor. And we now know it was probably because he was so stressed from just the hospital stay for my husband, and just could tell, life was different for him. But I was ready to have him put down because I said I can't take care of him. I just couldn't. I was barely making it myself. I had to take care of myself, and I couldn't take care of Chico. And so what happened is my younger son, Justin, said, "Mom, I want to take him. I want to take this dog, and Anna and I want to take him, and he's going to live with us." And they also took Coda, by the way, the yellow lab, because Coda also was having issues with her bladder. And again, I was in a state of deep grief, and I couldn't really have the care for the dog. So Justin said, "Mom, as long as Chico can keep eating, he is going to have a place with us." Justin and Anna live about 2 hours away from me, and they live on a nonprofit property that helps people in need, moms and younger children as well that need a place to live. So Chico came to live here and the last 100 days of his life, and it was amazing for him. I really call it like it would be heaven on earth here. And he became a star, a little star for the residents here. They all absolutely loved him. They knew they couldn't touch him. Now, the older teenage girls could. He wouldn't bite them. But the younger children knew that they couldn't touch him, but they were just mesmerized by him. And everyone on campus knew Chico. Well, because of the virus and, COVID and quarantine, I knew that it wasn't in my best interest for my own just mental, the way I was grieving, to be by myself and to be quarantined in my home. So Justin and Anna asked me and told me that I could come and live with them. So since probably about maybe March 10th or something, for the last 6 or so weeks, I've been here with them, and it's been amazing. I got to watch Chico, and I really wasn't his caretaker even here. He loved Anna best of all because Anna was the one that fed him, just like Wayman was the one that fed him. And so it was really cool, y'all, what God did for my heart, and what I learned from this experience is that God is the God of second chances, that He is faithful. He helps us make decisions where we won't have regrets. And the third thing is that He allows us to give honor to those that have passed. A few weeks ago, Chico's needed his rabies shot, so Justin took him to a nearby veterinarian clinic, actually about 30 minutes away to Bandera, Texas, and they saw him, gave him his shots, and the vet there told Justin that Chico had congestive heart failure. He was having a really hard time breathing. We didn't know that for sure, but that there was a lot of water around his lungs, and it was, that he needed some extra medicine. So we started him on a couple of medicines to help relieve some of that, and took him back to get checked, and it was better. But last Thursday, just actually less than a week ago when I'm recording this podcast, in the morning, I went in the laundry room and Anna said to me, I don't think Chico can walk anymore. And Chico, it looked like possibly he'd had a stroke. He had a history of seizures at times, but his left rear leg was no longer working and he could not walk. So I, sat with him. I took him out front and let him go to the bathroom, and I held him, and he did eat that morning. On Thursday morning, he did eat, but he never did want to eat after that. And I did get him to take his medicine that morning with pepperoni. He always loved pepperoni. We were watching him that day and really just prayed over him, and we thought maybe that he would die Thursday night in the night. We asked God actually for that. That it would just be, he was in the laundry room with the other two dogs, and just let him go ahead and pass. Well, Friday morning, he had drug himself over to the water dish to drink. He had also, lost control of his bowels. So it was just obvious that he was near the end. And my son had some other things going on, and he couldn't take him to the vet. And I needed to go do errands in the other direction to Kerrville. So I did that, and then I came home just afternoon and took Chico to the vet in Bandera. And they said they would evaluate him and let me know. Well, because of the virus, y'all, I couldn't go in. They come to the car with their masks on. The aides do, to get the animals to take them in. After they went in, after Chico, they came to get Chico. He was having a really hard time breathing, very labored breathing. I knew that he was near the end. And the vet called me on the phone, and I was, sitting out in the car, and she said, I can do some things to help him. But I said, no, he's nearly 14 years old, and I know he's near the end, and it's okay. And she gave me the choice that they could go ahead and put him to sleep in the vet's office and then bring his body out to me, or I could open up my car, and they would bring him to my car, and I would be with him. And I really had to think about this, y'all. Like, this was a hard decision. I mean, it's really hard to be with someone that dies. But yet I knew it was the right decision. And in my mind's thoughts, I heard my husband tell me, you can do hard things. Like, okay. So I told the vet, yes, bring him out to the car. So y'all, Chico had nearly died quite a few times before. I think in 2013, he had gotten hit by a car. My husband was walking with him, and Chico there was a car coming by, and Chico just went right into, didn't hear the car apparently, went right into the wheel of the back wheel of the car. Broke a few ribs, but he lived another 7 years after that. Just even a few weeks ago, he got into the little creek here, and we didn't know it. And one of the employees here found him in the creek with him unable to get out. And so he also had choked on a piece of meat just a few weeks before, and Justin had to do the Heimlich maneuver to remove that piece of meat to get him, going. So I was very blessed, y'all, that when my mom passed in 2014, she lived the last 7 years of her life with us. When my mom passed, I was able to be with her. God had that plan. I was with her and had given her permission to go ahead and go. She was ready to go. And she had told me that a few days before, Jesus, I'm ready. You can take me home now. One of her favorite sayings, and y'all are going to hear me on this podcast say this a lot. I'll be what I end every one of my sessions with is, how good can God be? That was one of her favorite sayings. And so, I was with my mama when she passed. And in January, had the perfect timing where I could be with my man, with my husband, Wayman, when he took his last breath. And that was January 19th of 2020, just 104 days before Chico took his last breath. God had it beautifully orchestrated. I can look back and see, I was telling my older son, just take him and have him put to sleep. I can't take care of him. But yet God gave Chico another 100 days, and I got to be here the last 6 weeks to just watch how he enjoyed life. This dog was deaf. He could not hear. When he first came to live with us, he was so afraid of thunderstorms that he would go and run and jump on my mom's bed when it would be thundering and lightning, because he was so afraid of that. But then he got deaf and he didn't even know, I think. He never seemed to be afraid in the last few years when he couldn't hear. So a couple of more details I want to tell you about the day Chico died. So the vet and the vet tech brought him out, and I parked under a shade tree, and I have a Honda CRV, so I was able to open up the back, and I sat back there, and they brought me Chico, and she gave him a sedation and then went back in. It was a shot, and he actually did not like that shot. He tried to bite my hand when she gave him the shot, and it took him about 10 minutes to actually just relax and go to sleep. They went back in the office and they came back out, and then she gave him a shot in his front leg that actually stopped his heart, and he was totally relaxed even before that. And so I just, laid him in his bed, and I had a little blanket in the back of the car, and they told me they were sorry and there was no more heartbeat. And I felt very blessed and privileged that God would have allowed me to be there. Especially when I had rejected Chico. I just knew that I didn't have the capacity to take care of him. And God is a God of second chances, and God is faithful, and God is honoring. So I had called my son and say, are you okay to bury him? And he said, yes, Mom, of course. And so I got home, and shortly after that, Justin got home, and here at the nonprofit where they live, and there's a pecan orchard right outside the back of the house, and actually the bedroom I'm sleeping in, I can see the pecan orchard, and the tallest pecan tree on all of this property is where Justin dug the grave for Chico to be buried. And actually I can sit in a chair and look out my window, and I can see Chico's grave. And that day when I'd done my errands earlier, I'd bought a Gerber daisy to plant on Chico's grave. And so far the deer have not eaten that Gerber daisy, and it's still there. But something very special happened, that Anna, my daughter-in-law, went to ask one of the homes here, the residents, if they wanted to come and help us bury Chico. And so a group of little boys, 5 little boys, young men that are under the age of 12, came and brought their treasures. One brought a stuffed animal, one brought a painted rock, one brought a medallion, a medal. They brought wild flowers. They brought pieces of paper, and they brought their love and their respect and their honor for this little dog. And these little boys had not been to a pet funeral before. They'd not even been to a human funeral before. And they went and gathered rocks to line and circle his grave as Justin dug it. And they wanted to come pet Chico. I let them. And we just stood in a circle and honored him. And each boy and each of us went around the circle and said what we liked about Chico and what we were going to miss. And tears were streaming, and there was such honor for this little dog, such respect for him. And I feel like God is just such a God of redemption. Y'all, he's a God of second chances. And the small beginnings that he gave me, like to have a redo, right, of my heart. And of course, I know in deep grief, I'm only capable of doing so much. But in these circumstances, God allowed me to be so blessed to watch this ceremony and be a part of it, where we honored Chico. And in that way, we were honoring my mama. because she loved her dog so much. And we were honoring Wayman because he was such a wonderful caretaker of Chico. There's something about the weaving of grief that God used Chico's death to help me even more with remembering my mother, and very, very, very freshly remembering my husband, because the day we buried Chico, it was day 104 of my grief journey of losing my man. We were married just under 35 years, so a long time that we had been together. I just want to bless you with this story. I want to encourage you and inspire you that if you see God use the creations that He's made for us, which include animals, to speak of His love in your life or in the love of those that you love, to embrace that. And so with a thankful heart, I thanked God for Chico and that He allowed me to have no regrets, that I got to be the one that took Chico to be put to sleep so that he was not struggling anymore, and that He was the one that gave me a second chance, that I also got to choose to be with him and hold him when, the vet administered the medicine to let him have his final rest. And also that I was honoring my mother and my husband and this dog, that had brought so much joy. So I want to tell you something very special happened after the vet and the vet tech walked away and Chico was no more breathing. And they walked away, and I was sitting in the back of my car there, with the hatch up, and this breeze that could not be denied came and blew over me. Like it was a breath of Holy Spirit, like that just came in the presence of God. And that's, for some of you, it may sound like that is really weird. And I would say it's very unusual, but God is alive, and He brought comfort to me in the form of a very, very big gust of wind that came and blew over me. It had been very still, and all of a sudden, boom, here came a big gust of wind that blew over my heart and over my spirit to say, thank you, God, like you were with me. And then in our circle around the tree, under the tallest, grandest pecan tree here on this property, there's a little dog that's buried. And he was buried with such honor and dignity and with such love. And so, I end this podcast today by asking you, and I ask myself, and I know it to be true, God is so, so good. But I ask you, just like my mama always asked, how good can God be? Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Small Beginnings with Sara. I pray you've been encouraged and inspired by the stories that you have heard today. I also pray that through my story, God has been speaking to the steps inside your own. Please follow me on my social medias, including Instagram at Acts18Blessings, Facebook at Acts18Blessings, and on my website, sarathurman.com. You can help others start their own small beginnings by subscribing to my podcast and leaving a review. One sentence is wonderful, and it really helps share the word. Thanks so much for coming along with me on my own journey.